Hello, I'm Tim Johnson, CEO of the California Rice Commission. Our grower meeting this year is virtual. This is the fourth in a series of presentations designed to bring this year's meeting directly to you. We look forward to seeing you next year. Now, David Guy with the Northern California Water Association will tell us about the water year, what it looks like, and give us an update on sites, reservoir, and insights into the big water issues facing California. Our partnership with the Northern California Water Association is one of the most effective for the rice industry, collaborating on communications and water policy to advance the valley.
Good day. It sure is a pleasure to be here with the California Rice Commission. As always, I really appreciate the work that the Rice Commission does, your leadership, and just great to share some thoughts today on the water dynamics affecting the Sacramento Valley. Today, I want to focus a little bit on the concept of ridgetop to river mouth water management, which I think is the dominant theme in water management in the Sacramento River Basin, and share some thoughts with you today and look forward to some comments. Obviously, we all love this special region. Here's the painting of the Sutter Buttes in the center of the region. So let's start with the water year. As folks well know, it's starting off fairly dry. We're not in any sort of a panic dynamic yet this year, but it definitely has shown some dry tendencies. So it's a little early in the year to obviously get too excited one way or another what kind of water year it's going to be. So obviously we're going to be focused on this a lot. Reservoir storage is okay, but obviously we'd love to have a little bit more in reservoir carryover, but we are in an okay place to start 2021. As folks know, the variability in the Sac River Basin has always been great. The blue years are the wet years, the yellow are the dry, and of course we have everything in between. And I think the bottom line is that the water managers in this region are prepared for any of these types of years. To help make this work, NACWA has a dry year task force. It's chaired by Fritz Durst and Brent Hasty. And obviously this year, we're already starting to work with the State Water Board on its various processes surrounding water rights. We know we have some Sacramento River temperature issues. Obviously, water transfers enter into dry year discussions, and we're looking at sustainable groundwater management throughout the region. And of course, we work with the Rice Commission very closely on the communication strategy surrounding the dry year. The purpose, of course, is to try to provide as much water as we can for the 2 million acres of family farms in this region. Of course, the rice in this region is just spectacular, and a big part of what we are working towards is to make sure that we have as much water for rice as you need. With respect to the ridgetop to river water management, I'm going to go through a handful of these elements that you can see listed here, and I'm just going to touch on each one of these and how important it is to the region and to being able to serve water to rice lands. And then I'm going to also touch on the fact that the voluntary agreements are really the cornerstone to making all of these happen. So I'm going to do a quick flyover of this watershed to river mouth water management. First, obviously, the healthy headwaters and forest management. Obviously, the headwaters for the entire state of California are in the Sierra Nevada and Coast Range. And we just have to spend a lot of time thinking about that. The wildfires over the last several years have been devastating. There's a lot of work that needs to be done with respect to forest management, and a lot of water management can be part of this. So we're going to be working with the folks in the watersheds. That includes Yuba Water Agency, Placer County Water Agency, Nevada Irrigation District, many others to help with this issue and the forest health. And obviously, as we go from dealing with emergency issues, which is what we've been doing over the last several years, to now a more contemplative kind of plan going forward, the water managers in these areas, I think, are going to be really, really helpful. The administration has committed $1 billion in their initial budget proposal to this issue. And so we're going to be working with them, obviously, to make sure that that money is well used to help with water management. The second element of this water management dynamic, of course, is floodplain reactivation. This is truly getting people excited in California as kind of the new way forward. You all know this map well. The green areas tend to be the farmland, a lot of rice land in there, and the blue are the bypasses and other areas that are regularly flooded, which also includes some rice lands. And our idea is to manage the floodplains first for public safety, and then beyond that, we can now manage that for fish and wildlife, much like you've been doing for the Pacific Flyway over the last several decades. We have dynamics on both sides of the levee. Obviously, on the wet side of the levee, we have the bypasses. Projects are moving forward to produce fish food and to help with salmon habitat on the wet side of the levee. And on the dry side of the levee, obviously, a lot of your farmland, we're looking at scaling up the opportunities to create fish food on these farm fields. The bypasses, a lot of exciting work going on. You hear about the Nagiri project, the flood print, the work that's being done at Conway, and then of course some of the work that's being done in the Sutter bypass, Dos Rios, very exciting work, and we want to continue to advance that work. Again, on the dry side of the levee, it's really producing the food on your farmland and then flushing that water into the river with the food so that the fish can hopefully benefit. A lot of opportunities here to scale up that opportunity. And obviously the work that the Rice Commission is doing is so invaluable in helping to scale this up and advance this work. And I really appreciate that work. We have a huge coalition, of course, that is working on this issue. You'll recognize all these logos as our partners, the top row obviously being some of the central landowners, obviously, and then beyond that, we have partners throughout the state who really want to help us reactivate the floodplain. Makes it exciting. The third element of the water management, of course, is active groundwater management. Something that's becoming obviously increasingly important and becomes even more important, of course, during dry years in the valley. There's a lot of work that's being done in the valley right now. I think as folks generally know, we have groundwater sustainability plans that are going to be due in January of 2022. So essentially a year from now, we are going to have groundwater sustainability plans, hopefully covering the entire valley floor, robust plans across the region. And so we're going to be working with folks to help make sure that those plans are robust and that we help tell that story. The groundwater management and the opportunities for recharge, the opportunities for groundwater banks in certain part of the valley, I think will be really helpful as we go forward. The next piece obviously is the salmon recovery program, something that we've been working on for several decades. A lot of good motivation here, a lot of good work being done. Projects are being completed every month with respect to salmon recovery, and we're going to continue this effort and appreciate all the efforts that you all have made to help advance salmon. Obviously, water supplies are tied to salmon recovery, and so to the extent that we can help salmon recovery, I think that will only help make water supplies for rice and other crops much more reliable. The birds in the Pacific Flyway, obviously a great story in this valley. The work of the Rice Commission, the work of our refuge managers, the work of our conservation partners is phenomenal. We want to continue that. Obviously, we're going to be working in large part to make sure that that water continues to get out on the ground to help with the Pacific Flyway. We have a lot of work that needs to be done, particularly in the refuges. And as far as getting some additional deliveries, conveyance out to the refuges, there will be a priority this next year. And then we're working, of course, with the Rice Commission. A lot of the work that you're doing on nesting and cover crops, we think is really great work and want to keep building on that. I think it's a great story for the valley. As part of this, we're developing this idea of freshwater ecosystem budgets, the idea that you have budgets of water for the Pacific Flyway, that you have budgets for salmon. And of course, the important thing is that this concept can work in tandem with your water rights and contracts. And so I think there's a major effort to try to develop these budgets so that we can make sure that the water gets out on the ground for these important purposes. Sites Reservoir, you've been hearing about Sites Reservoir, of course, your whole life and in these meetings for years. The Sites Project Authority continues to advance Sites Reservoir. They have gone through a right-sizing project recently to try to make the project efficient, to make it affordable for folks. And I think this next year, we just are really going to be supporting the project authority and its opportunities to show the ecosystem benefits that sites can preserve, potentially bring an environmental water manager into the process to help with that. And of course, the concept in large part is to help take pressure off your water rights and your water supplies. And sites reservoir is obviously an integral part of water management as we look to the future in California and the Sacramento River Basin. The goal, of course, is to be able to continue to provide water for all of these multiple beneficial uses in 2021. This is an evolving process. We're all learning how to do this better. You all are working out on the ground in your respective ways to do this in your area, and we really appreciate that and want to help you in any way we can. As I mentioned earlier, the voluntary agreements that you hear so much about are really the cornerstone for being able to do all of this water management that we just discussed. So there's a tremendous effort being put into voluntary agreements as we speak. A quick reminder that the choice that we have in California is, do we want state water board regulation or do we want voluntary agreements? I don't think the choice is that complicated, but under the state water board proposal, we have 1 million acre feet of water redirected from the Sacramento Valley to the Delta. That's uncompensated, and that's just done through a regulatory process. Of course, for context, that would be draining Folsom Reservoir when it's full entirely for this purpose. We don't think that that makes sense in California in 2021 with a state with 40 million people and the most vibrant agricultural economy in the world. So we obviously are looking at different ways to do it. And the question is, if we're going to fix this problem, how do we best improve the conditions for fish and wildlife while assuring reliable water supplies for your farms, your ranches, and of course our cities and rural communities? And we think that voluntary agreements over the next 15 years are really the best solution to help do that. Voluntary agreements have some flow component in the magnitude of around 250,000 acre feet of water that would be made available from different rivers in the region, primarily the Sacramento, Feather, American, and Yuba rivers, and that would be part of the agreement. Water would be compensated and it would be made available depending on the year type in different ways. We have a commitment, I think, from the water suppliers in this region to help do that. We're going to be presenting that to the state of California here soon. And we think this proposal, again, is much preferred over the state water board regulatory process. The reimagined water system, of course, that we all envision is that you can continue to do what you do so well in the spring and the summer, and that's grow your crops, obviously providing water to cities and rural communities as well. And then now for the last several decades, you've been providing water in the fall for rice decomp, for the refuges, and that has really helped the Pacific Flyway. I think it's been evident, and it's one of the environmental success stories of our generation. Now we're looking at expanding that season, obviously, into the winter, more for salmon and other aquatic species. And we think that this reimagined water system is really the future in California and is exciting in the way that it all can fit together. Obviously, something that you have known for your entire life is that when you have water, land, and sunlight, create something truly special, not only your rice, not only your crops, but we're now, of course, seeing that that is really the essence of all life, whether it's birds, fish, whatever it is that is living depends upon that combination of those three elements. And so I think as we look forward, hopefully the state of California, hopefully our federal partners and the conservation partners will come to recognize that it's really these three ingredients that is necessary for a bountiful life. Collaboration, the Rice Commission has been a wonderful collaborator over the years. NACWA, we collaborate with just about everybody, and that includes all of these folks here. We have a major collaboration program with just about every organization in the state that isn't in a litigation mode, and we're going to continue that in 2021, and very much look forward to working with the Rice Commission with all of these collaborations. We really appreciate the work that the Rice Commission does on communication. You all are really a leading example of that, and we want to just continue to do that. We want to show the exceptional and unique attributes of this region. We want to help articulate this ridgetop to river mouth water management that I think gets people in the state excited when you look at the opportunities ahead. And so we will continue to work with the Rice Commission in 2021 and very much value that relationship. I think, as folks know, we have a variety of platforms that we work together on, and I think these are all platforms that hopefully you all follow and actively participate in. I will just close in saying that we sure would welcome your joining us at our annual meeting this year. It will be on March 5th, Friday, March 5th. Of course, we're traditionally up at Sierra Nevada Brewery. This year, I'm guessing much like we're doing today, we'll be having this virtually, but please stay tuned for excuse me, more details, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you on March 5th. Thank you again for the opportunity to present some of this information today, and I very much look forward to further conversations around these issues. We have had a couple of questions today that I'd like to try to address if we can. The first question is, the voluntary agreement process had incredible momentum, but has stalled in the last year. And the question basically is, explain the dynamics surrounding that. Last February of 2020, the state team presented a proposal on the voluntary agreements. And of course, we all know that not long after that is when the COVID dynamic emerged in California, and things just radically changed at that point. There was also a dynamic going on at that time where there were lawsuits that were being filed between the state and federal agencies over water, largely the biological opinions, and then ultimately the incidental take permit that operates the state water project. And the combination of those two elements, I think, put the voluntary agreements on pause in 2020. We are very optimistic that the voluntary agreements are going to be rejuvenated in 2021. I think we're going to avoid some of the partisanship that we saw last year. I think with the new federal administration, we hopefully will not see that partisanship. We're, of course, waiting for folks to be populated in some of the key positions with the federal agencies, but we're anticipating that the state and federal team will be ready to roll on voluntary agreements in 2021. If that doesn't materialize, then I think there is always that possibility that we could go back to a state water board process. But I think the good news is, other than a handful of folks who really want to have a different policy agenda, I think most of the state team is committed to voluntary agreements, recognize that it's a preferred approach over the regulatory approach that the state water board has proposed. So we're looking forward to making some progress in 2021, and it's going to take a lot of hard work, but the one thing I know is that the Sacramento Valley water managers are poised to do that and ready to go.